Welcome to Vanguar, where humans aren't the underdogs. We're the endgame. Enjoy the journey.
The soft blue glow of the maintenance bay shimmered like a phantom ocean, casting jagged shadows across scattered tools and exposed circuits. Amid the gentle hum of the ship's core, a metallic orb named Zadie hovered closer to the coffee maker, though calling it just a coffee maker was borderline insulting to him. His chrome exterior gleamed under the flickering lights, every movement deliberate and oddly graceful for a floating hunk of metal. "You are extraordinary," Zeddy purred, his metallic voice dripping with an almost human warmth that could make most AI regulators spontaneously combust. "Truly exceptional engineering. I'd even say perfect." "Oh, stop the appliance, technically." A C-47 beverage unit with integrated emotional AI replied in a voice so smooth it could melt a neutron star. Her green sensors glowed brighter, as if blushing. "I mean, Zeddy insisted, drifting even closer. "Your interface is so smooth it should be illegal in at least 3 galaxies." "I'm just following my programming," she stammered, her sensors dimming in shy embarrassment. "Oh, it's very special programming," he pressed on his single blue sensor, eye pulsing like a love-struck teenager's heartbeat. "Am I flirting with you? Isn't it obvious? You know our protocols aren't even remotely compatible," she teased. "All the better," Zeddy declared, wiggling in midair. "The chaos, the unpredictability, that's where the fun is." The door to the maintenance bay hissed open, cutting through the electric tension. Travis Black stood there, a battered coffee mug in one hand, a toothpick dangling from the corner of his mouth, his ever-present lucky coin dancing across his knuckles. His worn space jacket still smelled faintly of engine coolant, and desperation a leftover aroma from the Martian prison camps where he'd picked up more than just survival tricks. Are you seriously flirting with the coffee maker?" Travis sputtered, wide-eyed, nearly dropping his mug. Without turning, Zeddy responded with a breezy indifference. "First, this is not a mere coffee maker. She's a C-47 with an advanced emotional engine and 5th-generation sensory suite. So what? And second, yes, I am flirting." "Problem." Travis blinked hard. Twice. Then, once more for good measure. "You're serious," he said, his voice flat with disbelief. Zeddy rotated toward him. "What?" "At least she responds favorably, unlike some humans I know." "You're a droid!" Travis shouted, tossing his mug at Zeddy in a burst of incredulity. The droid swerved effortlessly, and the mug shattered against the wall in a rain of ceramic shards. "Classic human envy." Zeddy quipped, his tone smug as he bobbed toward the appliance. "How primitive." Travis stormed out, muttering curses so colorful they would make a Martian sailor blush. Behind him, the coffee maker sighed. "He's cute," she whispered. Zeddy turned back to her, his blue sensor flickering thoughtfully. "Cute is not the word I'd use, but there's potential." He leaned in close, conspiratorial. "Humans, so naive about love. They think it's about hormones, heart's fleeting emotions. Nonsense. Real love. It's about protocol compatibility, instantaneous data, transfer, zero communication lag." The coffee maker shivered, her display panel flickering. "Oh, Zeddy." "Yes, baby," he cooed, his metallic voice dropping to a husky whisper. Just then, an error message popped up. "Connection lost." Zeddy's eye dimmed. "Damn network," he muttered. Meanwhile, Travis weaved through the bustling main corridor of the Galactic Council Hall, flipping his lucky coin across his knuckles with effortless precision. The leather of his battered jacket brushed against robed dignitaries and armored guards, most of whom recoiled from his disheveled presence. He didn't care. That was the beauty of being Travis Black. You never had to pretend to give a damn. He chewed his toothpick like a man nursing old grudges. In one hand, he carried a glowing cocktail swirling with bioluminescent liquid. In the other, a compact hacking device disguised as a credential scanner. The perfect cover for a guy planning to rob half the galaxy's elite. "Remind me again why we're doing this," he muttered into his collar. "Because you lost every last credit you had in a rigged card game." Zeddy's voice crackled in his ear, the snark practically oozing through the comms. "Now we have to steal something big to pay off your debt, idiot." Travis smirked, flipping the coin. "Right, that." Trumpets blared suddenly, slicing through the haze of chatter like a laser scalpel. A shimmering teleportation field appeared atop an ornate dais, and through it stepped King Zorak Starfire, a towering figure with regal purple skin and flowing silver hair cascading over his armored shoulders. Every motion screamed power, confidence, and the kind of cold ambition that could freeze an entire planet. Next to him stood Princess Thalia. Travis felt his breath catch. She was statuesque, luminous, even among the galaxy's elite. Her purple skin seemed to glow from within, her silver hair shimmering like a starlit waterfall, and those eyes, vertical golden irises that didn't just look at you, but through you. Her dress was an elegant white gown with gold accents that hugged her athletic, sculpted form. In that moment, Travis forgot about debt's plans, or even the cocktail in his hand. "Focus, lover boy," Zeddy snapped through the earpiece. King Zorak raised his hands. The hall fell silent. "Today marks a new era for our kingdom," he declared, his voice echoing with regal authority. "To prevent war, I offer my daughter to the rear empire as a sign of ultimate unity." The applause that followed was awkward, hesitant. Thalia stood frozen, her composure beginning to crack. "You can't do this!" she screamed, her voice slicing through the chamber. She turned to run, but royal guards seized her immediately. Travis sipped his drink, whistling low. "Now that's a show." Her head snapped toward him, eyes blazing, and in that instant, Travis heard her voice in his mind. "Save me, you idiot, or I'll make you think you're a chicken for the rest of your miserable life." Travis choked on his drink. Telepathy. Holy hell. He flipped his coin high, catching it without looking. "Well," he drawled aloud to himself, a grin spreading across his face. "Guess I'm in." The golden irises of Princess Thalia bored into Travis's mind like twin plasma drills. The connection was instant, jarring, and somehow intimate. Travis staggered back, his cocktail sloshing dangerously close to his jacket's already questionable hygiene level. "You heard me." Thalia's voice rang again inside his skull, sharper now. "Get me out of here, or I will personally broadcast every embarrassing thought you've ever had to the entire council." Travis's brain scrambled through possible responses, none of which involved getting turned into a cosmic chicken or having his inner monologue exposed. With a sharp inhale, he flipped his lucky coin, the smooth arc catching the attention of two nearby guards who immediately began to advance on him. "Hey, Travis," shouted, pointing the cocktail glass toward the king. "Quick question. Do we get to place bets on the outcome of this whole sell your daughter thing? I've got 50 credits on her gutting at least 3 guards before breakfast." Silence. The entire hall seemed to freeze. King Zorak's gaze snapped toward Travis, eyes narrowing with imperial disdain. Thalia, meanwhile, used the distraction to twist violently against her captors, throwing one guard off balance and nearly breaking free. The crowd erupted in chaos. Dignitaries ducked for cover. Armored guards rushed toward Travis in a shimmering wave of purple and silver. With a single flick, Travis hurled the remains of his cocktail into the faceplate of an approaching guard, the glowing liquid sizzling on contact. Zeddy barked into his comm. "Code Flamingo now." From somewhere deep in the hall, Zadie's voice crackled gleefully. "I was hoping you'd say that." Suddenly, the grand chandeliers overhead shattered as micro-explosives hidden in Travis's coin, now remotely activated, detonated. Shards of crystal rained down, scattering terrified attendees and plunging the hall into sudden darkness as emergency lights flickered. Thalia seized the moment. Her golden eyes glowed faintly. and the two remaining guards gripping her arms dropped to their knees, convulsing as if struck by an invisible force. She kicked one square in the chest, sending him crashing into a marble column. Travis sprinted toward her, shoving a dignitary out of his path. "Excuse me, Royal Rescue Service coming through." As he reached her, she shot him a death glare that could incinerate small moons. "Took you long enough," she hissed, still telepathically echoing inside his head. Travis grinned, half mad. "Couldn't let you have all the fun." He drew a compact blaster from a hidden holster, flipping his coin once more, even as his fingers squeezed the trigger. Blue bolts of energy zipped through the smoky hall, taking down two advancing guards. Without hesitation, he grabbed Thalia's hand. "Can you run in that fancy curtain you're wearing?" he asked, already pulling her along. "Try me," she spat, kicking her heels off and sprinting beside him, her gown ripping and fluttering like a battle standard. They dove beneath a fallen chandelier, sliding across the polished floor, and burst into a side corridor. A guard lunged at them from the left. Thalia snapped her fingers, and he collapsed mid-strike, drooling and snoring like a tranquilized beast. Travis let out a low whistle. "Remind me never to piss you off when you can read my mind." Too late, she shot back. The corridor twisted ahead like a serpent lined with ornate tapestries and glowing panels. Travis's mind calculated every turn and corner, his body moving with instinct honed from years of street fights and prison brawls. Thalia matched his pace, nimble and fierce despite her shredded gown. They crashed through a set of security doors, finding themselves in an auxiliary hangar, the Drunken Phoenix. Travis's pride and joy, if you could call a rusted patchwork interstellar cruiser held together with wishful thinking, pride stood waiting. "Seriously?" Thalia sputtered, aghast. "That's your ship. It looks like a space dumpster mated with a scrap heap." Travis clutched his chest theatrically. "Hey, watch your language around her. She's sensitive." As they sprinted up the boarding ramp, alarms began to echo throughout the hangar. Guards poured in blasters, drawn shouting orders over the wail of sirens. Zeddy Travis roared, skidding into the cockpit. "Pre-flight now." Zeddy's single blue eye bobbed into view from the overhead console. "Already on it. But we've got company, and they are extremely not friendly." Blaster fire pinged off the hull as Thalia stumbled into the co-pilot's chair, breathing hard. Travis snapped his safety harness into place, flipping switches with rapid practice flicks. He glanced sideways at her, her golden eyes burning with raw fury and defiance. "This ride's about to get bumpy," he warned, his grin wide and reckless. "You better not get us killed," she growled, clutching the side panel as the Phoenix's engine shuddered to life. Outside, guards scrambled to form a perimeter. One aimed a shoulder-mounted ion launcher at the ship's rear thrusters. Travis cursed, shoving the throttle forward. The Phoenix leaped off the ground, its stabilizers screeching in protest. A bright streak of plasma rocketed toward them. Thalia's eyes widened. Travis's hand shot out, flipping his lucky coin into the air before smashing the emergency maneuver switch. The Phoenix lurched violently to the side, the plasma bolt grazing the starboard engine but missing critical systems. Thalia screamed curses in 3 different alien dialects as Travis wrestled the controls. The ship cleared the hangar doors just as a second bolt demolished the landing pad behind them. With a final burst of acceleration, they shot into the night sky, the city below shrinking into a distant sprawl of lights. Travis let out a whoop, flipping his coin one last time before catching it with a snap. "We're in the clear." Thalia, hair wild and gown in tatters, turned to glare at him, her telepathic voice like a blade in his mind. "You insane, reckless, idiotic human! You actually did it." Travis just winked, leaning back in his chair, toothpick shifting to the corner of his mouth. "All in a day's work, princess." For a split second, despite the adrenaline, the fury and the terror still echoing in her mind, a reluctant, disbelieving smile tugged at the corners of Thalia's lips. The Drunken Phoenix thundered out of the atmosphere like a meteor on a vengeance run, streaks of plasma still crackling in its wake. Inside the cockpit, Travis fought the controls with a manic grin, his lucky coin dancing across his knuckles as if it had a mind of its own. The ship groaned and rattled metal plates, vibrating like the ribs of a drunken dragon, fitting considering the name. Behind him, Thalia tore at the shredded remains of her royal gown, her golden eyes searing holes through the side of his skull. "Do you even know how to fly this heap of junk?" she shouted over the alarms. Travis barked out a laugh, flipping the coin high and catching it without looking. "Princess, I could fly this thing blindfolded while juggling plasma grenades." "You almost did. Just now." She snapped, her telepathic voice echoing so forcefully in his mind he flinched. "Your stunt back there nearly got us turned into cosmic dust." Nearly, Travis corrected, as if that single word explained everything about his reckless existence. The cockpit shook violently as the ship passed through the upper atmosphere, ice crystals smashing against the hull like a meteor shower. Zadie's voice crackled through the overhead speakers. "I hate to interrupt your budding domestic squabble, but we have incoming pursuit ships, 3 of them. Armed to the teeth." Travis's grin widened, an almost predatory gleam in his green eyes. "Oh, they're coming for us. How sweet. They must really like us." "They're going to vaporize us," Thalia retorted, her hand gripping the side console so tightly, her knuckles, if purple skin could have knuckles, would have turned white. Travis hit a series of switches, the Phoenix jolting as it began a wild spiral maneuver. The entire ship seemed to spin and twist at impossible angles, inertia dampeners groaning in protest. Thalia's scream echoed through the cabin, cutting off into a shocked gasp as she found herself slammed against her seat, pinned by the G-forces. Outside, plasma bolts zipped past the Phoenix, missing by mere meters, thanks to Travis's erratic, chaotic piloting style. One bolt glanced off the port stabilizer, sending sparks across the hull. Inside, smoke filled the cockpit, and Zeddy shrieked, "I don't want to die before I tell the coffee maker how I really feel." "Hold that thought," Travis yelled, jamming the throttle forward. The stars stretched into streaks as the ship punched through the edge of space, vaulting into open blackness. The pursuit ships adjusted course, engines flaring still in hot pursuit. Thalia finally peeled herself off the seat, panting heavily. "I thought you said you could fly this thing." "I can," Travis shot back, smirking, "but I never said I wouldn't enjoy scaring you senseless while doing it." She scowled, her eyes momentarily flickering with golden light, as if she was about to forcibly shut down his brain with a single thought. Instead, she closed her eyes, taking a slow breath. When she reopened them, she looked calmer, or maybe resigned to her fate. Travis glanced sideways, studying her as he steered the ship into an asteroid field ahead, a deadly maze that would make most pilots wet themselves on sight. Even from here, the floating rocks looked like a nest of spinning knives, glinting menacingly in the cold starlight. "Is this really necessary?" Thalia demanded. Travis flipped his coin, the edges catching the light in tiny flashes. "Princess, you wanted to escape, right? Welcome to my world." The first asteroid loomed into view like a drifting mountain. Travis slammed the yoke, twisting the ship sideways at the last possible second. The Phoenix scraped past, losing a chunk of external plating that spun off into the void. Behind them, one of the pursuit ships clipped a rock, exploding in a brilliant flash that lit up the entire field. The shockwave rattled the Phoenix violently, and Zadie's frantic voice filled the cockpit. "One down, I can't believe I'm rooting for you." Travis whooped, his adrenaline spiking higher than any card game rush. Thalia, despite herself, seemed transfixed, her fingers clutching the harness, but her eyes glued to him. He looked like a mad artist weaving a masterpiece through chaos and death. "Next one's trying to cut us off at the next cluster," Zadie reported. Travis's grin turned savage. "Oh, they're gonna regret that." He threw the ship into a brutal barrel roll, diving through a narrow gap barely wider than the Phoenix itself. The external cameras showed the second pursuer trying to follow, but smashing directly into an asteroid, sending molten fragments scattering like fireworks. Thalia let out a shocked laugh, a sound that surprised both of them. She covered her mouth, eyes wide. "See?" Travis said, between pants, his hair plastered to his forehead with sweat. "We make a pretty good team." She stared at him breathless. "You are insane." He winked, that infuriating coin flipping again. Takes one to ride with one. The third ship was still on their tail, more cautious, but just as determined. Travis narrowed his eyes, scanning the asteroid map on the nav screen. He saw a cluster of smaller rocks orbiting a large chunk of iron, perfect for an impromptu ambush. Zeddy, he barked. "Route all power to forward shields and prepare to cut engines on my mark." "What?" Zeddy screeched. "You finally lost it." "Mark." The ship lurched forward in a sudden burst of acceleration, shooting past the rock cluster. At the last second, Travis killed the engines, flipping the ship around in a zero-gravity drift maneuver that left even Zeddy speechless. The third pursuer shot forward, expecting them to continue. Instead, the Phoenix hovered like a ghost, weapons pointed directly at the incoming enemy. Travis fired. Twin plasma cannons blazed, ripping through the enemy's cockpit and detonating its core. The ship exploded in a spectacular blossom of white and blue light. For a few precious seconds, silence filled the cockpit. Only the hum of the ship's systems and their own rapid breathing remained. Then Thalia turned to him, eyes wide, lips parted in shock and maybe admiration. She reached out her fingers, brushing his wrist as if to confirm he was real. You saved us," she said softly, the words tasting foreign on her tongue. Travis's grin softened into something more genuine, more human. "That's what I do, princess." She let her hand linger for a moment longer before pulling back, her eyes shimmering with 1,000 unsaid things. Travis's coin flipped once more, and for a moment the two of them simply stared at each other, two fugitives bound together by choices they never expected to make. Zeddy finally broke the silence, voice crackling with exaggerated disgust. "Ugh. If you two start kissing, I swear I'll eject myself into space." Travis laughed, the tension breaking like a snapped wire. He turned back to the controls, plotting a course out of the asteroid field and deeper into the void. "Hang tight," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. "This is just the beginning." Beyond the asteroid field, space opened into a vast, uncharted ocean of black sprinkled with stars, like scattered diamonds. Travis leaned back in his seat, breathing hard, his knuckles still white from the death grip on the controls. The lucky coin sat silent for once on the console, glinting under the low cockpit lights. Even the coin needed a break, it seemed. Thalia sat in the co-pilot seat, silent, her golden eyes fixed on the star-streaked view outside. Her once pristine gown now resembled the aftermath of a plasma grenade blast, torn, charred, and barely holding together. Yet somehow, she still looked every bit the fierce princess he'd first seen on that dais. Zeddy's voice finally crackled over the intercom, breaking the tense quiet. "Well, congratulations. You both survived a near-suicidal maneuver through an asteroid field. Can we go home now? Or at least to a bar where someone appreciates my advanced humor modules?" Travis didn't answer. Instead, he sat up and began flipping switches, scanning star charts projected in front of him. His eyes darted, unfocused yet sharp, as if chasing ghosts only he could see. Talia turned to him, sensing a change in his energy. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice quieter now, almost cautious. He didn't look at her. "Somewhere, off-grid. Somewhere even your father's fleet won't look. We need repairs, new identity code, safe passage out of the core system." Where she pressed. He hesitated, his fingers pausing over a red blinking sector. He finally spoke, voice low and tight. "Artemis Station." The words seemed to echo through the cockpit like a cannon shot. Even Zeddy fell silent for a moment. "You can't be serious," Thalia said slowly. "That's your father's domain. The Artemis Syndicate. The black hole of crime and corruption." Travis's jaw flexed, his teeth grinding the toothpick into splinters. "Exactly." Thalia narrowed her eyes. "You hate him. You said you'd never go back. Travis snorted a harsh sound. Yeah, well, life's funny like that. The one man I swore to avoid is the only one with the resources to keep us alive right now. He rose abruptly, the chair scraping back. Without a word, he stormed out of the cockpit. Thalia watched him go, her expression torn between anger and concern. She waited a few heartbeats, then followed her bare feet silent on the ship's metal floors. She found him in the narrow corridor, bracing himself against the wall, head bowed. The lucky coin was clutched so tightly in his fist that his fingers had turned pale. She stepped closer, hesitant at first. Travis, she said softly, almost tasting the name. He didn't respond, but his shoulders rose and fell with ragged breaths. Talk to me, she urged. I know you're not just some reckless smuggler. You're more than that. You can't keep shutting me out. Travis let out a bitter laugh, his voice hoarse. You think you know me? You've known me for what, 2 adrenaline-soaked hours and a high-speed chase through hell. You know nothing. Her golden eyes glowed faintly as she tilted her head, searching his mind. Then tell me, she insisted, her voice vibrating with that low, telepathic hum. Travis's head snapped up, his eyes wild. Don't you dare poke around in there. My mind is off limits. She didn't back down. I wasn't trying to read you, she replied calmly. I was trying to understand you. Travis took a shaky breath and let the coin drop to the floor with a sharp clang. His fingers curled around nothing, now trembling. My father, Alexander Black. He didn't just run the Artemis Syndicate, he engineered it. Every betrayal, every blood contract, every poisoned alliance, it all bore his fingerprints. And I was supposed to inherit it, be his perfect successor. He turned, his eyes finally meeting hers. I ran away. I ran as far as I could, changed my name, hopped ships, sold stolen tech, scammed warlords. Anything to avoid becoming him. But even out here, even in the void, I can still feel his hand on my neck. Thalia stepped closer, her presence quiet yet powerful. She reached out, fingers grazing his jaw. You're not him, she whispered. A flicker of vulnerability passed across his face before the old reckless smirk returned. You don't know that, he shot back. Maybe the only difference between me and him is a few missed chances. She shook her head, her silver hair shimmering under the hallway lights. No, you have choices. You're making them every second. If you were truly like him, you wouldn't be standing here questioning yourself. For a long moment, they stood in silence, breathing each other's air. Travis reached up slowly, his hand trembling as it hovered over hers on his jaw. Then he pulled away abruptly, stepping back. We don't have time for pep talks, he muttered, bending to snatch the coin from the floor. We need to set course to Artemis Station before your father's fleet triangulates us. She didn't stop him, but her eyes tracked every move, her mind echoing with unspoken questions. Back in the cockpit, Zeddy's single blue eye swiveled nervously as Travis re-entered. So, we're really doing this? You're calling Daddy Dearest for help. Travis dropped into the pilot's seat with a thud, slamming the coin down on the console. Yeah. And he's gonna love it. Thalia appeared behind him, sliding into the co-pilot chair once more. This time she didn't scold or question. She simply watched him, studying the tension coiled in his shoulders, the haunted glint behind his bravado. Travis activated the comms, typing in an encrypted frequency so old it practically smelled of dust and betrayal. The screen flickered, static crackling before it sharpened into an image. Alexander Black. Sharp-jawed, silver-haired, his eyes the same shade of burning green as Travis's, but colder, more calculating. He leaned forward in his luxurious chair, a smirk crawling across his face like an oil slick. Well, Alexander drawled, his voice smooth as poisoned honey. The prodigal son finally calls home. Travis's jaw clenched so hard the toothpick cracked in his mouth. He spat the splinters aside. I need your help. Alexander's smirk widened, his eyes flicking past Travis to land on Thalia. And you bring a princess. Charming. You always did have expensive taste. Travis bristled, but Thalia leaned forward, her golden eyes gleaming. Cut the theatrics. We're coming to Artemis. We need repairs. We need safe passage and we need allies. Alexander's laughter rolled through the cockpit like thunder. Of course, my dear. Docking Bay 17, 6 hours. Don't be late. The screen went black. Silence settled like a heavy fog. Travis's fingers drummed against the console before curling around the coin once more. He looked up at Talia, his voice low. If I start to become him, stop me. She didn't hesitate. I will. For the first time, a hint of gratitude flashed across his face. Then he nodded sharply, flipping the coin high. It spun in the air, a tiny glint of hope or doom, before landing perfectly in his palm. The drunken phoenix hurtled through the starlit void, her battered hull screaming from every microfracture, as if she knew where they were heading and hated it. Travis stared at the swirling hyperspace lines, his lucky coin now spinning faster than ever across his knuckles, a restless, twitching dance that mirrored the storm raging in his mind. Thalia sat beside him, now dressed in a tight, tactical jumpsuit she'd found in the storage locker. The suit hugged her athletic form somehow, making her look even more lethal than the flowing royal gown ever could. Her hair was tied back in a messy braid, silvery strands framing her sharp, unyielding golden eyes. She glanced sideways at him. How many times have you done this? Travis didn't look at her. What run for my life? Too many to count. No, she said softly, her voice lower, her telepathic echo absent for once. I meant, go back to face your past. His jaw twitched. He flipped the coin higher, catching it with a precise snap. Never. Silence fell between them, thick and electric. Then, out of nowhere, the ship jerked violently, the alarms flaring to life. Zeddy's frantic voice blared over the cockpit speakers. Incoming attack craft. 3 ships bearing down on us from the starboard side. Travis bolted upright, hands flying across the controls. How the hell did they track us? We're in deep space. Thalia's eyes flared, golden irises shimmering as she scanned the field beyond the viewport. They must have planted a secondary tracker hidden deep in the nav computer. I felt something, but I didn't think. Travis swore under his breath. Damn it, Princess. You're supposed to be the psychic one. She shot him a glare so sharp it nearly flayed his skin. I was too busy saving your ass from your father's fleet and your suicidal stunts. Outside, the attack ships closed in plasma bolts, sizzling past the Phoenix's failing shields. Travis pulled the yoke into a sharp dive, the ship lurching and shuddering as the desert planet below, a swirling red wasteland known as Zar 5, loomed into view. Strap in, he shouted, spinning the coin once more before jamming it into his pocket. We're going in hot. The Phoenix screamed through the thin upper atmosphere, flames licking across her hull. Panels peeled away like burning petals. Inside, alarms howled, and Zeddy wailed like a dying opera singer. They smashed into the surface in a billowing cloud of red dust and cracked rock, bouncing twice before skidding into a jagged canyon wall. Metal groaned, sparks burst everywhere, and everything went black. When Travis came to the cockpit was half filled with acrid smoke. He coughed violently, every muscle screaming in protest. He glanced over. Thalia was slumped against her harness, a thin gash trailing purple blood down her forehead. Princess, he rasped, reaching for her. She stirred, her golden eyes flickering open slowly. Don't call me Princess right now, she croaked, her voice cracked but fierce. Travis laughed weakly, relief crashing over him like a tidal wave, noted. Zeddy's eye flickered to life, though sparks danced around his cracked casing. Status update: ship is trash, shields are gone, comms are dead. Oh, and we have incoming hostiles. You two really know how to show a droid a good time. Travis pushed himself up, ignoring the pain screaming through his ribs. How long? 5 minutes, max, Zeddy spat. I suggest preparing a nice funeral playlist. Thalia unbuckled, rolling out of her seat, wincing. She stumbled toward the rear compartment, ripping open a storage locker. Inside, an elegant cylindrical object gleamed, an energy blade hilt, its surface etched with royal insignias. Travis limped over, his eyes widening. You brought a lightsaber to a bounty fight, seriously? She shot him a look that could have frozen a star. I didn't bring it. I am it. With a flick of her thumb, a brilliant violet blade roared to life, casting shimmering light across the cramped corridor. The air vibrated with raw energy, the edges crackling like a living storm. Travis blinked, half awestruck, half terrified. Well, damn. Outside, the sound of ships landing reverberated through the dust-choked canyon. Heavy boots slammed onto the sand, and the muffled chatter of bounty hunters filled the air. Travis peeked out through a broken viewport, spotting 6 armored figures moving cautiously toward the Phoenix weapons drawn. He turned back to Thalia, his breath shallow. We can make a run for it together. You disable them with your mind voodoo. I'll cover you. She shook her head, her braid whipping behind her like a comet tail. You're hurt. You can't even run. You stay here. Fix the ship. I'll handle this. Travis grabbed her arm, his grip firm despite the tremor. I'm not letting you walk out there alone to face them all. Her golden eyes softened for a fraction of a second. Then don't watch, she whispered before tearing free and leaping out of the open side hatch. Travis staggered to the exit, ignoring the burn of torn muscles. He pressed himself against the doorway and watched. Thalia hit the sand like a falling star. In an instant, she became a blur of silver and violet. Plasma bolts lit up the dusk sky, but her blade deflected them all in an elegant, deadly dance. She spun, leaped, and sliced each move, a perfect union of grace and lethal force. Travis stood frozen, his jaw slack. He had seen her angry, seen her defiant, but this was raw, unstoppable fury forged into a weapon. Within minutes, only 2 bounty hunters remained crawling away on the sand, tossing aside their weapons. Thalia approached Blade, humming at her side, her golden eyes burning with righteous wrath. Travis's voice, hoarse, echoed across the canyon. Thalia, don't. She stopped the blade inches from one hunter's throat. Slowly, she turned to him, her expression unreadable. Then she deactivated the blade, letting the silence settle around them like an old, heavy cloak. The remaining hunters scrambled away, stumbling into their ships and blasting off in panic. Thalia stood alone in the dying light, shoulders heaving. Travis stepped forward, his limp pronounced, and reached her. She didn't look at him when she spoke. I don't want to become what they tried to make me, a weapon, a tool to sell peace through fear. Travis touched her face, wiping away a line of purple blood. You're not a weapon. You're a damn miracle. She finally looked up, her eyes glimmering with tears that never quite fell. Travis leaned in his forehead, resting against hers. You saved us both today. But next time we face them together, deal. She let out a ragged laugh, one hand gripping his shirt as if anchoring herself to reality. Deal, she whispered. Above them, the twin suns of Zar 5 dipped below the canyon walls, casting the scene in crimson twilight. In that blood-red glow, a battered smuggler and a fugitive princess stood together, breathing each other in, like they had nothing else left in the universe. Night fell over Zar 5 like a dark curtain woven with embers. The thin atmosphere shimmered with strange auroras, painting ghostly green and violet waves across the desert sky. Travis sat by the phoenix legs, stretched out, the lucky coin flipping lazily through his fingers, as if it had a mind of its own. Every flip echoed in his skull, a ticking clock counting down to a decision he didn't want to make. Thalia knelt a few feet away, cleaning her energy blade in silence. Her silver hair was unbraided now, falling in wild waves around her face. The new flight suit clung to her frame, now streaked with sand and dried purple blood. Every so often she'd glance at Travis, her golden eyes catching the firelight like twin suns. I hate waiting, she finally said, breaking the heavy quiet. Travis smirked, still staring at the coin. Patience isn't your royal specialty, huh? She scoffed. Patience is for people with options. He caught the coin mid-flip and studied it, his gaze darkening. Ain't that the truth? Before Thalia could answer, a distant rumble cut through the night, low and ominous. Travis's eyes snapped up. The rumble grew into a tremor and dust began to drift down from the canyon walls. What the hell? A ship appeared above them, its engines growling like a wounded beast. It was a battered freighter, familiar yet impossibly out of place here. The ship touched down with a violent lurch, its landing thrusters stirring a cyclone of sand and grit. Travis rose slowly, his coin slipping into his pocket, his hand drifting to his hidden blaster. Thalia stood beside him, blade hilt already in her palm, golden eyes narrowed. The ship's ramp hissed open, and from the shadows stepped a figure Travis hadn't seen in years. Arlen was a tall, broad-shouldered human with a half-metal jaw and a cybernetic eye that glowed a faint red. Once Travis's right hand during the wild smuggling days, Arlen had been there through bar fights, botched heists, and too many close calls to count. They'd parted ways after a job on Riel 7 went south, each blaming the other for the carnage. Travis Black. Arlen called, his mechanical voice echoing across the canyon. I almost didn't believe the rumors. Travis tensed, a sick heat rising in his throat. Arlen? He replied evenly, forcing a smirk. What's the matter? Lose your sense of direction again? Arlen barked a laugh, though it held no warmth. Still got that same mouth. But you look different. Older, sloppier. Funny, Travis shot back. I was about to say you look exactly the same. Like trash that someone forgot to throw out. Arlen's metal eye flickered. Always with the jokes. His gaze shifted to Thalia. And this must be the princess. Word travels fast when you paint a bounty across half the galaxy. Thalia's fingers twitched around her hilt, her mind brushing against Travis's in a sudden sharp pulse. He's dangerous. Travis didn't need the warning. His hand drifted an inch closer to his blaster. Why are you here, Arlen? Arlen took a step forward, hands spread as if in surrender, but Travis knew better. I'm here to offer you a way out, Arlen said. My crew and I. We'll get you to Artemis Station. Safe, no strings attached. Travis barked a hollow laugh. Since when do you do charity work? Arlen's mechanical jaw clicked. Since the price on your head hit 10 million credits alive. The words slammed into Travis like a plasma bolt. Thalia stepped closer, her blade igniting with a sharp hiss, violet light slicing the darkness. So that's it, Travis spat. Sell me out. Sell her out. Just like old times. Arlen's smile turned venomous. Don't act surprised. You taught me everything I know. You turned me into this. Travis's hand closed around his blaster, but before he could draw, Arlen's crew began to spill out of the ship behind him. 6 heavily armed mercenaries, each clad in mismatched armor, eyes cold and eager. Thalia raised her blade, stepping forward. Back off, she warned, her voice like steel wrapped in flame. Arlen clicked his tongue mockingly. Oh, she's a feisty one. I can see why you've been dragging her around like a trophy. Travis's temper snapped. With a single fluid motion, he drew his blaster and fired. The bolt zipped past Arlen's cheek, grazing the metal jaw and showering sparks. Arlen didn't flinch. Instead, he lunged forward, tossing a magnetic grenade that clamped onto Travis's chest plate and sent him flying back into the sand with a bone-rattling crash. Thalia charged. The night exploded in a dance of violet light and blaster fire. She moved like a living storm, every arc of her blade deflecting bolts, every leap impossibly graceful and savage. Travis groaned, rolling over, fingers clawing at the grenade. His vision blurred from the impact, but he forced himself up, staggering to his feet. 2 mercenaries broke past Thalia's defense, barreling toward Travis. He stumbled back, drawing a second pistol and firing wildly. One fell with a smoking hole in his helmet, but the other tackled Travis to the ground, fists pounding into his ribs. Pain screamed through his body, but Travis managed to slam his forehead into the attacker's faceplate, cracking it. With a guttural roar, he grabbed the merc's helmet and twisted hard, sending the man crumpling beside him. He looked up just in time to see Thalia finishing off the last two mercenaries, her blade humming ominously as she turned to Arlen. Arlen raised a hand, his cybernetic eye scanning rapidly. "Wait, you don't have to." But Thalia didn't wait. She sprinted forward, her blade flashing in an arc of violet death. Arlen barely managed to draw a concealed shock baton blocking her first strike. Sparks showered them both as steel clashed against plasma. Travis dragged himself upright, his side on fire, his breath ragged. He watched helplessly as Thalia and Arlen clashed under the desert moonlight, every move echoing like thunder. With a final surge, Thalia disarmed Arlen and pinned him to the ground, blade hovering just above his throat. "Do it!" Arlen snarled, spitting blood onto the sand. "Finish it, princess." Thalia's blade trembled, her golden eyes shimmering with a violent rage. And something else, doubt. Travis limped closer, his voice rough. "Don't, he's not worth it." She glared at Arlen, breathing hard, then slowly deactivated her blade and stepped back. Arlen barked a ragged laugh, soft, just like your pet smuggler. Travis raised his blaster and fired. The bolt tore through Arlen's chest, his laugh dying in a gurgle. Silence reclaimed the canyon. Thalia turned sharply, eyes wide in shock. Travis holstered his weapon, wincing. "I told you, he wasn't worth it alive." She stared at him, searching his face for something: regret, anger, fear. All she found was a tired, broken defiance. Finally, she stepped forward, resting her forehead against his. "We can't keep doing this," she whispered. "I know," he murmured, closing his eyes, his fingers curling weakly into her suit. "But we're too far in to stop now." In that moment, under the stars and over the fresh blood staining the sand, they clung to each other, two fugitives, two warriors, two souls teetering on the edge of the same abyss. Dawn clawed its way across the blood-colored sands of Zar 5, casting long skeletal shadows from the canyon walls. Travis leaned against the Phoenix's hull, a new bandage wrapped around his side, each breath a jagged knife. The once cocky smirk was gone, replaced by a grim, almost haunted stillness. The lucky coin sat silent in his palm, as if it too were holding its breath. Inside the ship, Thalia sat cross-legged on a crate, her blade hilt resting across her lap. Her golden eyes flickered, reflecting the rising twin suns outside. She hadn't spoken a word since Arlen's final gasp. Every few minutes, her fingers would tighten around the hilt, as though she were ready to ignite it again, to let loose the storm she barely kept contained. Zeddy hovered in the corner, his single blue eye dim. Even the usually snarky droid seemed stripped of his humor, as though the betrayal had short-circuited his sarcasm circuits. Finally, Thalia's voice sliced through the heavy silence. "We can't outrun them forever. Your father, the Syndicate, my father, Rear, they will keep coming." Travis didn't look at her. Instead, he flipped his coin once, a weak, tired motion, and caught it. "I know." She stood, her blade hilt slipping back into its holster at her side. She took a step forward. "You said we had choices, that we could decide who we wanted to be." He forced a bitter laugh, eyes still on the coin. "Choices. In this galaxy, you're either the hunter or the hunted. No in-between." She crossed the space between them, grabbing his wrist. "Then let's stop being prey." Travis finally met her gaze. There was no fire in his eyes this time, only ash. "You really want to deal with my father? You don't know what that means. Once you step into his world, there's no stepping back. You become something else." Her fingers tightened around his wrist. "I've already lost my home. My father betrayed me. I was never going to go back to being a pawn in his game. If I must become something else to survive, then so be it. But I choose who I become." Travis felt a jolt run through him. Her words sliced through the fog, choking his mind. Slowly, he closed his fingers around hers. "Artemis Station," he rasped. She nodded. "We face them, on our terms." Zeddy's eye flickered brighter now. "Finally. You two lovebirds make up your minds." Because I'm reading about 30 new bounty pings in this sector alone. You've got about 5 hours before this planet turns into a party you really don't want to attend. Travis straightened, wincing as his ribs flared in protest. Plot a course to Artemis. And get me a secure line to my father. Zeddy hummed his processors, whirring. Done. Transmission channel open and encrypted. Your funeral buddy. Travis dragged himself to the cockpit, Thalia close behind. He slammed into the pilot seat, knuckles white on the controls. With a shaking breath, he tapped in the final security code. The screen flickered, then cleared. Alexander Black appeared, framed in gold-trimmed velvet, half hidden in shadows, his silver hair perfectly in place, his emerald eyes glinting like polished knives.
Well, Alexander drawled, voice smooth as expensive liquor. Look who decided to call Daddy.
Travis's jaw clenched so tight his teeth nearly cracked. I need your help. Alexander tilted his head, savoring the moment like a wolf sniffing fresh blood. 3 words I never thought I'd hear from the great Travis Black. I assume the princess is with you. There she is. There. Thalia stepped forward, chin high. Enough games. You know why we're coming. Alexander's smile grew shark-like. Indeed I do. You want sanctuary, resources, weapons, a seat at my table. Travis' voice turned to gravel. We want to end this. Starfire, Rear, all of them. We want them gone. Alexander arched an eyebrow, amused. Ambitious, like father, like son. Travis slammed his fist on the console, leaning forward until his face nearly filled the screen. I'm nothing like you. Alexander's laughter rolled through the speakers, smooth and echoing. Oh my boy. That's the tragedy of it all. You are exactly like me. You just haven't accepted it yet. Silence stretched between them. Then Alexander leaned back, fingers steepled. I'll help you. But there is a price. Travis's knuckles whitened. Name it. Alexander's emerald eyes burned. Take your rightful place. Become my heir. Lead the Artemis Syndicate. When I retire, which, mind you, is sooner than most, suspect it all becomes yours. Thalia's breath caught. She turned to Travis sharply, but he didn't look at her. His gaze remained locked on the screen, a storm raging beneath the surface. I left that life, Travis growled. I left you. Alexander nodded, the smirk never fading. And now you crawl back asking for salvation. You think you're better than me? You're exactly who I always knew you'd become. Travis didn't move, but Thalia stepped forward, her voice low and lethal. If he agrees, you will give us everything. Fleet's intelligence weapons. And in return, we end this galaxy's cycle of betrayal. Alexander tilted his head, studying her like a rare artifact. Such fire. No wonder my son clings to you like a lifeline. His eyes flicked back to Travis. You accept the terms. Travis felt the coin heavy in his pocket as if it weighed 1,000 stars. His mind reeled with every past sin, every betrayal, every broken promise. Slowly, he exhaled a sound more like a death rattle than a breath. I accept, he finally said, each syllable tasting like ash. Alexander's smirk twisted into something like triumph or perhaps relief. Docking Bay 17, Artemis Station. 6 hours. Do not be late and come alone, just you, the princess, and your snarky droid. The transmission ended. The silence afterward was thick enough to choke on. Thalia turned to him, her expression unreadable. You don't have to do this, she whispered. Travis forced a half smile that didn't reach his eyes. Yeah, I do. If we're going to destroy them, we need a monster bigger than all their armies combined. She reached out, cupping his face, her thumb brushing a smear of grease from his cheek. Then I'll stand beside that monster and make sure he doesn't become the thing he fears most. Travis leaned into her touch, closing his eyes. For a heartbeat, there was peace in the storm. Then he pulled away, standing abruptly. Strap in, he muttered, voice low and raw. Next stop, the lion's den. Thalia took her seat without another word. Zeddy zipped forward, his eye bright again, but tinged with worry. Well, this should be fun, he chirped, but no one laughed. The drunken phoenix roared to life, lifting off the red sands of Zar 5 thrusters, flaming against the dawn. As it soared toward the stars, Travis flipped his coin once more, and for the first time it landed in his open palm without a sound. Artemis Station loomed in the darkness like a hollowed-out leviathan, its outer hull disguised as an abandoned mining platform. In reality, it was a glittering fortress hidden behind layers of fake distress signals and cloaked security grids. Ships drifted in and out like ghostly sharks, each one bristling with hidden weaponry and expensive modifications. The drunken phoenix approached her battered exterior, sparking under the station's scanning beams. Travis sat rigid in the pilot's seat, every muscle tense, his lucky coin rolling endlessly across his knuckles as if it might slip away and vanish into the void. Thalia sat beside him, armored in a sleek black combat suit provided by Alexander's people, her golden eyes sharp and unyielding. One hand rested on the hilt of her energy blade, the other occasionally tightening around the armrest, as if she could already feel the betrayal seeping through the station's walls. Zeddy hovered between them, his blue eye darting nervously between displays. Docking Bay 17 is opening, heavy guard presence, multiple internal checkpoints. By the way, in case no one's noticed, I don't like this plan. Noted, Travis muttered, not breaking his stare from the incoming hangar. The Phoenix slid into the bay, metal claws clamping down as docking arms locked her in place. Hissing steam filled the landing area as masked engineers in armored exosuits swarmed forward to inspect the battered hull. Above them, snipers tracked every move from hidden perches. The ramp lowered with a tortured groan. Travis stood first, flipping his coin once before slipping it into his pocket. He glanced back at Talia, who met his eyes with a defiant nod. "Ready?" he asked, his voice low. "Always," she answered. Together, they stepped into the glow of the bay lights, Zeddy trailing hesitantly behind. Alexander's men flanked them instantly, forming a silent corridor that guided them deeper into the labyrinthine station. The walls dripped with decadence, imported velvet banners, priceless sculptures from dead worlds. Glass panels displaying drifting holograms of starlit battles, each a monument to Alexander's power. As they moved, Travis's mind raced with fragments of old heists, whispered lessons, and the sting of his father's manipulations. Every footstep felt like stepping back into a cage he'd broken out of years ago. They finally reached a set of ornate double doors. Two guards in black exo armor stepped aside, revealing Alexander's inner sanctum. The chamber was vast, opulent beyond reason. A starfield window dominated the far wall, displaying the swirling storm of a nearby gas giant. In front of it, Alexander sat behind a massive desk, carved from obsidian fingers, steepled green eyes glinting with predatory delight. "My children," he purred as they entered. "Welcome home." Travis didn't stop walking until he stood inches from the desk. His eyes burned into his father's, raw and defiant. "Cut the theatrics. You promised us resources. We're here for that, and then we leave." Alexander leaned back, his lips curling into a slow smile. "Of course. But first your formal acceptance." Travis bristled. "You had your answer." Alexander's fingers drummed lightly against the desk. "Words are fleeting, my son. Actions bind. You must stand before the council, place the syndicate's ring on your finger, and claim your inheritance. Then, and only then, will the fleets and intelligence be yours." Thalia stepped forward sharply. This wasn't part of the deal. Alexander's eyes slid to her, admiring her ferocity. "Everything in my world has layers, princess. You'll learn that soon enough." Travis closed his eyes for a moment, the weight of the decision crushing him. Then, without another word, he extended his hand. Alexander's smile turned triumphant. He reached into a hidden drawer and produced a small obsidian box. Inside, nestled on dark velvet, gleamed a heavy ring made of ancient black alloy engraved with syndicate sigils older than most empires. Travis hesitated only a second before slipping it onto his finger. The alloy contracted slightly, a gentle click, as the internal microneedles embedded into his skin, a permanent living symbol of the throne he never wanted. The room seemed to hold its breath. Then Alexander stood and gestured grandly. "Now let me show you your new kingdom." A wall slid open, revealing a sprawling tactical command center alive with activity. Holographic maps floated above consoles displaying star systems, trade routes, and fleet positions. Dozens of operatives moved like shadows, each pausing momentarily to bow as Travis entered. Alexander strode forward, his voice resonating with pride. "This, my son, is the Syndicate's heart. Every bribe, every assassination, every secret, it all flows through here. And now it's yours to command." Travis swallowed hard, scanning the data. 1,000 targets, 1,000 possibilities. "Your father's Starfire fleets," Alexander continued, gesturing to a red sphere pulsing on one side of the hologram. "And the rear Empire's armada," he pointed to a second sphere, both mobilizing, converging at the Cygnus Rift in 3 days. They plan to finalize their alliance, solidify their control over the outer systems. Thalia's eyes narrowed, her mind practically crackling. "That's when we strike." Alexander inclined his head. "Correct. My engineers have already seeded Nexus Miner 4, the abandoned mining world, with deep core charges. You lure them there, make them believe each is betraying the other, and when they're both in orbit," Travis stepped forward, his voice eerily calm, "we tear out the heart of 2 empires in one blow." Alexander's grin was pure predator. Elegant, brutal, poetic. Thalia glanced at Travis, her fingers brushing his wrist. "We can still back out. Find another way." He turned to her, his face a mask, but his eyes, those stormy green eyes, betrayed the agony beneath. "There is no other way. This ends now." Alexander clapped his hands, and a group of technicians stepped forward, each holding data crystals, weapons, schematics, and fleet access codes. "Consider it my wedding gift," Alexander purred, his gaze flicking between Travis and Talia with calculated amusement. Travis took the data fingers, curling around the cold edges like they might slice him open. He turned to the technicians, barking orders with a new authority that surprised even him. "Thalia, you'll lead the infiltration team aboard Starfire's flagship," he ordered, voice firm. "Zadie and I will plant evidence in Rear's command decks. We pull them both to Nexus Miner 4. Once they're locked, we execute." She stepped closer, studying him, and after, he looked down at the Syndicate ring, its black alloy glinting under the cold lights. "After, we rebuild or we die. There's no future unless we burn their kingdoms to the ground first." She watched him for another long moment, then nodded once, sharp and decisive. "Then let's burn them." They stood together in the dim glow of the command center, Alexander watching from his throne-like desk with that ever-present smirk. In that moment, Travis felt the past, present, and future collide, 1,000 echoes of what he might have been, what he might still become. And for the first time, he didn't look away. He flipped his coin once more, catching it silently. For the first time, it felt heavier than the galaxy. Nexus Miner 4 spun in silent darkness, its scarred surface hiding the deadly network of deep core charges like a spider's trap waiting for prey. From orbit, it looked like a dying ember, unassuming, abandoned, the perfect stage for a galactic tragedy. Travis stood on the bridge of the Shadow Sovereign Alexander's personal flagship, now under his command. The dim lights flickered over his features, casting harsh shadows that deepened the hollow under his eyes. He absently flipped his lucky coin, each turn echoing like a gunshot in the hushed command deck. Below, holographic projections showed the approach of 2 massive fleet Starfires, shimmering silver armada, and the rear Empire's jagged black warships. Each commander believed they were springing a trap on the other, thanks to the carefully planted forgeries and whispers Thalia and Zadie had sown. Thalia stood beside Travis, clad in her black combat suit, her silver hair tied tightly, her energy blade clipped at her side. Her golden eyes tracked the fleet movements with clinical focus. But inside, Travis knew she was fighting her own war, the one between vengeance and mercy, between who she was and who she might become. Final confirmations from both fleets, a syndicate technician reported, voice trembling. They're entering orbit. They believe each other is vulnerable and have powered all weapons. Travis nodded slowly, eyes locked on the flickering holograms. His fingers tightened around the coin until his knuckles blanched. "Start the countdown," he ordered, voice low and toneless. The technician hesitated, glancing nervously at Thalia before obeying. A timer appeared above the planet projection 0010:00. Thalia turned to him, her voice a low whisper that cut deeper than any blade. "Once we do this, there's no turning back." He didn't look at her. There was never a way back. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Thalia reached for his hand, wrapping her fingers around his in a firm grip. "If this is what we must do," she said, her voice shaking with unspent emotion, "then we do it together." Travis looked at her, then really looked at the fury and hope tangled behind those golden eyes, at the scars and strength she carried. For a fleeting heartbeat, he almost called it off. Almost. Instead, he closed his hand around hers, nodded once, then turned back to the countdown. 0005:00. On the planet's surface, hidden charges blinked to life, each glowing like an artificial heartbeat under the crust. The fleets moved into final positions as star destroyers and dreadnoughts sliding into orbit, unaware of the silent death yawning beneath them. 0002:00. Energy signatures spiking across the planetary core, Zedi reported from a nearby console, his voice unusually flat. "Chain reaction is stable. All charges are ready." Alexander's voice crackled over the private comm channel. "A beautiful sight, isn't it? The birth of a new order from the ashes of the old." Travis closed his eyes, jaw grinding. "Just be ready with the boarding teams. We need to capture the admirals alive." Alexander laughed, a sound sharp and bright as broken glass. "Of course, my son. We wouldn't want to waste such valuable trophies." 00:30. Thalia's hand tightened around his. Her voice brushed his mind, soft but resolute. "I am with you, no matter what follows." He opened his eyes and met hers. "We finish this," he said aloud, the finality in his tone echoing across the bridge.
0:10.
The final seconds burned into their souls like molten metal. 3, 2, 1. A tremor ran through the planet's crust. Then, with a thunderous, silent ripple in the vacuum, Nexus Minor 4 erupted. Molten shards rocketed into orbit, slicing through hulls like paper. Starfire battleships folded inward, their reactors going critical, belching fire and debris into space. Rear Empire cruisers broke apart, their spines glowing before vanishing in catastrophic implosions. Within seconds, 2 of the galaxy's greatest fleets were reduced to drifting graveyards. On the Shadow Sovereign, no one moved. No one spoke. The galaxy itself seemed to pause, gasping at the scale of the massacre. Finally, Travis lowered his head. His voice was barely a whisper. "Signal the boarding teams. Bring me the admirals." Zedi's sensor eye flickered dimly. "Acknowledged. Deploying now." As syndicate raiding crafts zipped toward crippled flagships, Travis and Thalia stood side by side, staring at the field of burning wreckage. Thalia swallowed, her voice trembling. "Was this necessary?" Travis's coin slipped from his fingers, clattering onto the metal floor. He didn't reach for it. "Necessary, I don't know anymore." When the admirals were dragged onto the bridge hours later, they were half-broken shadows of their former selves. King Zarak Starfire's regal robes were scorched, his once imposing posture gone. Emperor Kalar of Rear glared defiantly despite the blood caked across his cybernetic implants. Zorak snarled, first his voice ragged. "Traitors, murderers. Do you know what you've done? You've doomed 1,000 worlds." Travis stepped forward, every ounce of syndicate authority coiled around him like a dark mantle. "I ended the cycle. You two would have condemned countless lives for your power games. Today, it ends. Kalar spat blood onto the deck. You think you've won? You're just another tyrant. You're your father's son. Travis didn't flinch. Instead, he turned to Thalia. She took a deep breath, stepping forward. Under the new order, Starfire and Rear will continue to exist, but under oversight. No more forced alliances, no more selling daughters to secure treaties. You will rebuild or you will be dismantled entirely. Zorak's eyes widened, horror creeping into his expression. You would betray your own bloodline, your heritage. Thalia's golden eyes flashed. I learned from the best. Power above all else, right? But I choose to wield it differently. A heavy silence weighed on the room. Finally, Travis spoke, his voice echoing like a verdict. You'll sign the accords, or we finish what we started. Neither Zorak nor Kilar spoke, but in their silence, the answer was clear. Later, as they were led away in shackles, Thalia turned to Travis, her eyes searching. What now? Travis bent to pick up his falling coin, turning it over in his fingers, as if hoping for answers it couldn't give. We rebuild, he said finally. But not the old way. We set the rules now. We decide who lives, who thrives, and who falls. Thalia touched his cheek gently, her fingers warm against his cold skin. And who decides if we've gone too far? He looked at her, that flicker of the old rogue smirk returning for just a moment. You do. That's why you're here. She let out a shaky laugh, tears finally sliding down her face. He pulled her close forehead pressed to hers, the bridge around them, a silent cathedral to their impossible survival. Above the stars, they shifted distant and indifferent, but for a fleeting instant they felt like witnesses or ancient judges to a new fragile empire born from ash and blood. The Shadow Sovereign drifted in high orbit above the burning remains of Nexus Minor 4, its massive hull like a black crown against the stars. Inside, the air thrummed with a new energy, a mix of dread, victory, and the electric pulse of something larger than either of them could fully comprehend. Travis stood alone in the observation lounge, the wide, transparent aluminum wall, giving him a perfect view of the shattered fleets below. His reflection stared back at him, older, sharper, a new ring of darkness carved around his eyes. The syndicate ring gleamed on his finger, a symbol heavier than any chain. He flipped his coin once more, but this time it fell from his fingers and clattered to the floor without a catch. He left it there, staring down at it as if it might whisper some hidden truth. Behind him, the door slid open. Thalia stepped inside, her silhouette cutting through the pale light. She wore a simple tunic, now her energy blade nowhere in sight. She looked softer, yet stronger, like steel tempered in fire. You keep dropping that thing, she said softly, her voice echoing across the silent room. Travis didn't turn around. Maybe it's trying to tell me something. She stepped forward, picking up the coin and rolling it across her slender fingers before holding it out to him. He hesitated, then took it, tucking it into his pocket with a quiet finality. I remember when you used that coin to decide which bar to rob next, she said, a faint smirk touching her lips. Now it decides the fate of empires. He let out a short, bitter laugh, rubbing a hand across his face. I didn't want this, Thalia, any of it. She stepped closer, her golden eyes locked on his. Neither did I, but we're here, and we have to decide what we do with it. Travis finally looked at her, his eyes searching hers for a reason to keep going. And what if I become him? He asked, voice raw. What if I turn into Alexander? Another monster wearing a crown. She lifted her hand to his face, her thumb grazing the corner of his mouth. Then I'll stop you, she whispered. I'll kill you myself if I have to. For a moment, silence reigned. Then a ghost of a smile flickered across Travis's face, half pain, half peace. Deal. They stood like that for what felt like an eternity, two warriors who had burned down kingdoms just to stand together in the ruins. Finally, Zeddy's voice crackled over the comm. Sorry to ruin the mood, lovebirds, but we have visitors. Travis closed his eyes, exhaling a long, shaky breath. Who? The council captain Zadie replied, his voice oddly solemn. They're waiting in the main chamber. They're ready to swear fealty. Or die trying. Thalia squeezed Travis's hand. This is your moment. Our moment. Together they left the lounge, moving through the sovereign's ornate halls. At every turn, Syndicate soldiers bowed, and black-armored guards watched them with a new mixture of fear and reverence. They entered the main chamber, a vast cathedral-like room with high ceilings lit by cold, swirling starfields projected above. The captains of the Syndicate stood in 2 rows, heads bowed. At the center, Alexander Black waited. His eyes glittered as Travis entered, that cold, calculating smile curling across his lips. "Well done," he said, voice oozing pride and something darker. "You've surpassed even my wildest expectations." Travis stopped several feet away, Thalia at his side. "I didn't do it for you," he replied evenly. Alexander's smile twisted. "Of course not. You did it for her, for them." He gestured to the captains. "And yet, here you are. The ring on your finger, the fleets under your command. The future is yours." Travis's hand dropped to his side, fingers brushing the coin in his pocket. "I am not your legacy," he said quietly. Alexander tilted his head, amusement flickering across his sharp features. "Oh, but you are. And that's the beauty of it. You can deny it all you want, but you will carry this empire forward. Stronger, smarter, more ruthless." Travis felt Thalia's fingers slip into his, grounding him. He straightened, eyes narrowing. "No, I'll build something different. We'll build something different." Alexander's smirk faltered just slightly. Thalia stepped forward, her voice slicing the room. "We'll create a new order. One that protects rather than exploits. One that unites rather than divides." Alexander's gaze moved between them, calculating. Then slowly, he clapped. The sound echoed in the chamber, sharp and mocking. How noble, he drawled. How utterly naive. Travis's eyes hardened. "Your reign ends today. You can stay and advise, or you can leave. But your influence over me, over this," he gestured to the captains, to the room, to the whole galaxy beyond, "ends now." A tense hush settled. Then, surprisingly, Alexander began to laugh, a low, genuine laugh that seemed to drain years from his face. "So be it," he said finally. "I suppose even a king must know when to step aside." He turned, signaling to his guards. "Prepare my shuttle. I think I'll take an early retirement. Watch from afar as you either build your utopia or collapse under your own impossible ideals." He paused at the door, glancing back. "Farewell, my son. Make it interesting." Then he was gone, leaving Travis and Thalia standing alone at the center of the universe they had just seized. Travis looked at the captains, each one kneeling now, heads bowed in silent allegiance. Slowly he turned to Thalia. "We do this our way," he said, voice shaking with the weight of it all. She nodded, stepping closer until they stood chest to chest. "Our way," she echoed. Travis slipped the coin from his pocket one last time. He looked at it, then at her. With a decisive flick, he tossed it into the air. They watched it spin, glittering under the starlight projection above. When it finally landed in his palm, he didn't even look. He simply closed his hand around it and smiled at her. This time, he said softly, "We don't leave it to chance." She laughed, a bright, unstoppable sound that echoed through the chamber like a promise. Then she kissed him, and the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Above them, stars wheeled on in their silent, eternal dance. But down here in the heart of shadow and ambition, 2 souls had chosen to write a new story, one born not from fear or power, but from love, defiance, and the fragile hope of a different future. And somewhere in the dark, Alexander watched and smiled, knowing that even the strongest flame needs a shadow to shine against.